Chapter 4. In the case of a closed head injury, where the brain is not exposed, the head should be kept immobilized till X-rays show whether there is any spinal damage. If the patient seems unable to breathe or swallow properly, a ventilation tube must be inserted into the mouth. This was done. The patient's reaction to light was tested hourly. Her pupils reacted sluggishly. The left lung had collapsed, punctured by a broken rib, and there was danger of the chest cavity filling with air, thus pushing other organs out of position. So a chest drain was inserted to relieve pressure. Tara. Lights kept shining. Someone was pressing on me and trying to stick things in my mouth. I hadn't gotten pissed at a party, had I? Mel and Brittany and I had promised we wouldn't let that happen to us. I couldn't tell. I couldn't remember things. My side still hurt. I was standing on a tiny island in the middle of a huge, slow river, and the river was eating the island away, bit by bit. Ryan. Mum made me eat some toast and stuff. I'd got up about 6:30. Hell, I never get up on school mornings till nearly 8. The pills had knocked me out for a few hours. Then I lay and stared at the ceiling, hearing a car go up the street, breaking into a sweat when it sounded as if it was stopping outside our place, feeling like the world had started flying apart all around me. I heard other things too. Mum crying and John murmuring to her. I must have slept then, because suddenly I was driving the Subaru along a narrow road like a trench, with high concrete walls on either side. Someone was trying to get out of my way, but they couldn't climb the walls. I kept stabbing my foot at the brake, but there were weights or something holding my foot down, and the car just went faster and faster. I woke up with my head banging and my mouth stretched wide to yell. I sat on the edge of my bed after that till grey light started showing through the curtain. Bits of last night whirled in my head. Me grabbing the DVD from Vince, the girl in the headlights. God, why hadn't she? Why me? I kept thinking. Why me? Mum looked awful. The moment I came into the kitchen, she hugged me and kept holding me. Suddenly I ached to be a little kid again. I sucked in a big, shaky breath. We love you, son, Mum said. We love you and we'll be with you. John was in the shower. Okay, mate, he said when he joined us at the table. Can we talk about a few things? He didn't look like he'd slept either. I didn't want to talk about anything. I didn't want to know about anything. I sat there and ate a piece of toast that I couldn't taste. I've rung Central Hospital, John went on after a minute. The toast clogged in my mouth as I stared at him. My stepfather shook his head. They won't tell me how she is. Privacy Act. But she's alive, Ryan. I'd been holding my breath, chest locked. How? I rang the police too. Told them who I was, why I was ringing. Her name's Tara Gower, by the way. The woman at the police station said the hospital would ring them if anything happened. It means the charges against you would change, mate. Mum gave a sob. I kept staring at John. I knew what he meant. I'd thought about it in the night, but I'd managed to keep the words away. Murder. Manslaughter. John glanced at Mum, then back at me. We should have the car back in a couple of days. They're checking it for roadworthiness and evidence. Peel from work is lending me his old banger till then. Mum held John's hand. You'll have to go to court, love. You know that. I nodded. I'd swallowed the toast, but my throat still felt blocked. We're with you, mate. We're not going to make excuses, but we're with you. He paused. What do you want to do? I had to punish myself, hurt myself. If I kept doing that, then other people might not blame me so much. I want to go to the hospital. Closed head injuries often cause swelling of brain tissue. There is then a danger of the cerebrospinal fluid being compressed, and in extreme cases, of brain tissue being squeezed down into the top of the spinal column with fatal results. An intracranial monitor was inserted in the patient's skull to monitor any signs of such swelling. To help blood drainage, her bed head was raised 30 degrees. The chest drain appeared to be functioning. There was no indication of pressure build-up in the chest cavity. Ryan. Mum didn't like it. Why, love? They won't want you there. I've got to. I couldn't explain. John shook his head. Mum sighed. I'll ring school and tell them you'll be away. Go and have a shower, then eat some breakfast. You have to eat, she told me as I started saying something. I'd only been going to say, yeah. The hot water stung my knuckles, and I stared at the torn skin. I'd almost forgotten that business with my door. I put some plasters on. My door looked like it could do with a few plasters too. The phone rang as I came out of my room, and my guts turned to cold water. I stood still while Mum answered. When she said, Hello, Ash. Yes, I'll get him. I had to stay for a second with one hand against the wall before I could move. Ash's voice was quiet. Hi, mate. Just ringing to see how you are. I told him what John had found out from the cops. That's positive, mate, Ash said. Mum reckons every hour improves their chances in this sort of thing. She's a netballer, remember, so she's fit. That helps. Oh, her name's Tara Gower. I know. I was remembering other things. The startled eyes as she stared at us, the sound of her head hitting. I clenched my teeth and squeezed the phone. Anything I can do? Ash asked. You heard from Vince? No, I said. There was nothing he could do. And no, I hadn't heard from my best mate. Tara. The thing in my mouth was still there. I couldn't feel the rest of my head or body, but the thing was there, trying to push down my throat. I was too tired to fight it. All around me, the river kept eating away at the island. Ryan. John drove me to Central Hospital. Pior's car was a banger all right, a clapped-out Holden with bottles on the floor and tools on the back seat. I'll clean it out later, John said. No, I'll do it, I told him. He glanced at me, then nodded. We found a place in the main car park. She'll be in intensive care, John told me. You want me to come? Yeah, I did. I was scared shitless. Nah, I said. The hospital was 4 big square buildings in depressing grey concrete, about 6 stories high. I found the main entrance. Inside was a shop selling flowers, chocolates, magazines, all kinds of brightly coloured stuff, and an inquiries counter with a board listing wards and departments. Nothing about intensive care. I asked the woman behind the counter, who nodded at the board. 3rd floor. I looked again. ICU. Sounded like a kid's joke. I walked down the shoe-squeaky corridor. Round the corner, they were pushing an old woman on a bed into a lift. Wild eyes stared from under white hair. I suddenly wondered, did the people here know who I was? What I'd done? What would I do if one of her friends or somebody had a go at me? I climbed the stairs to ICU. It took longer that way. I came out opposite another counter, with chairs and a couple of low tables nearby. The woman here smiled at me. Can I help you? Tara Gower? She ran her finger down a list. Are you family or a friend? Oh, shit. Then a phone on the counter rang. ICU, the woman said. Valerie speaking. To me, she whispered, Doctor's with her now. Like to sit over there? I sat by one of the tables. A little way down the corridor were double doors with one of those touchpad locks on the wall beside them. Intensive care unit, no unauthorized admission, read a notice. She was on the other side of those doors. I picked up a magazine, stared at it without seeing it, put it down again. The woman at the counter finished on the phone, typed something on a screen, went away down another corridor, came back and typed some more. 5 minutes passed. 10, 15. I had to find someone. I started to stand. A man came out through the double doors of the intensive care unit. Not a doctor, a guy in khaki pants and a green jersey. My back cramped. It was the guy who'd looked back at me last night. Tara's father. He was tall and bony, with glasses. His clothes were rumpled. You could tell he hadn't slept all night. He hadn't looked at me. He wasn't really seeing anything. I heard him ask the Valerie woman if there was a public cafeteria in the hospital. She was nodding and telling him, her voice full of sympathy. I'd kept my head down, but now I glanced up and the woman noticed me. "Oh, there's someone else here asking about Tara." I sat like a stone as the guy turned. He was so shattered, it took him a moment to even see me. Then he knew. His face changed suddenly and he began walking towards me. My body wouldn't move. Once again that feeling came of things breaking apart all around me. Then I stood, to face what was coming.